Hello and welcome to Sorcerer's Workshop, where we are always cooking up something new for you to use in your next D&D adventure. This week we are making a air elemental. I'm starting a very short 4-part series where I make the 4 main elementals. I'm starting with air, then going to earth, and then not sure from there. Anyway, this episode is all about making an air elemental. It's fairly simple once you get the technique down. There's not really much of a technique either, but it's just trying to make it look, well, almost see-through air sort of looking thing. It's probably the hardest of the 4 elementals to make. So let's get started. We're starting all the way down at the bottom, the sort of base, I guess. I didn't want to give it legs because in the concept art it doesn't have legs in any way. It just would weird. So I thought I'll give it sort of a swirling tornado, cyclone, not sure. Start with a piece like this. It can be like a pentagon, a hexagonal shape, but it needs to be about this sort of size. You just want to make sort of a dome out of it at the moment. So you see I'm just cutting away all of the sharp edges. Leave the bottom flat because that will be eventually glued to the base. But other than that, try and make it into sort of a domed sort of shape. Doing that, I'll give you a little brief introduction if you have never ever seen an air elemental before. I doubt it, but hey. An air elemental is described as a funneling cloud of whirling air with a vague semblance of a face. It can turn itself into a screaming cyclone, creating a whirlwind that batters creatures even as it flings them away. So yeah, they're pretty powerful. Of the 4 main elementals, that being the earth, water, fire, and of course air, they are probably the second most powerful, I'd say. You don't really want to meet one. But I can see that I've finished making it now. So once you've got this dome shape, make sure you trim the edges because you don't really want these sharp edges. Sharp edges. You want them sort of smooth, so it just creates a really funneling dome shape. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Mine is definitely not a perfect circle, but you sort of want that. You also want to cut these sort of gashes, nashes, whatever you want to call them, into it. This will, once you paint it, it looks really nice, I think. At the time of making this, I was like, I hope this works. I wasn't really sure, but it does look really nice. It sort of gives it off the swirling sort of whirlwind. Try and cut them at an angle, like a hemisphere sort of angle. That's not a good way of describing it. You can sort of see what I'm doing there, but just so they sort of are swirling in one direction, not just straight up. You can do them straight up. A few of them are. That larger one is sort of straight up to the middle. It doesn't have to be in the middle where you're going to. Maybe make it slightly off to the side. I know I make it slightly off to the side. Here is the main part of the body. There's 3 sections to the body. The sort of the head, the torso, and then sort of the bit that connects to the base. It's not the legs. But you want to start off with these sort of, well, they're sort of almost cubic sort of shapes. Make sure you turn it into a sort of a, what would I call it? Sort of a long, yeah, like that basically. And this is the bit that connects to the base. Obviously, it looks quite good, but no, we're not finished there. Again, you want to cut these nashes into it like this, or gashes. Any sort of how, use a pencil or use the knife as I am that you want it. I would connect it like this with the larger part at the top. Whoop, almost dropped it there. And then you want to do the same for the middle piece. You want to use a knife, and as you can see, you sort of want it to line up. There will be a little bit of a line. You can make it in one piece, obviously, if you're that good at using the XPS foam, but I'm not yet, so I sort of made it in a few separate pieces. But again, just sort of make sure all the edges are rounded off because you don't want it looking ugly like that. And then, just cut them off, add the nashes again. Try to make, if you're doing it in separate pieces, try to make the gashes sort of add up together. It's a little bit hard to see, but those two, there is a line there in between them. But that'll really sell it that it is not like a couple of separate. There, I am using the pencil. Yeah, I use the pencil more to like really detail these ones, and then just to do some little ones as well, because the knife's a bit too big to do that. So there are the 2 pieces. The head is exactly the same as the bottom piece. It's just more rounded, and you just want to poke a sort of wailing mouth and eyes into it. I'll show you the head in a second. So here are the 3 pieces we have at the moment. The base with all its holes. We have the bottom piece, we have the torso or the middle piece, and then we have the head. Here's the head. As you can see, it's literally the same as all the other pieces, gashes all over it, try and make them link up again. This one's a little bit more different because you're going to have arms sort of reaching off it, so you don't want to make it the full size of the piece, but try and make it sort of close so it looks like a head. Yes, it looks a bit like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters, but they're really hard to make because it's air. How the heck do you make air? But now let's move on to the arms, which is the next part. You want any sort of thin pieces. The arms aren't going to be these big chunky things. They're going to be quite sort of thin, but something like this. I do them in two pieces, sort of, you have the main arm, I'm not good with anatomy, but that, the top part of your arm and the bottom part of your arm, so you can have sort of an elbow where you can sort of move it around. Something like this. You could even do like a hand. I think for the other arm, I sort of have a hand. It's not really a hand. It's sort of just a thing that it smacks you with, But also remember to cut the little pieces, cut the little nashes into the arms as well, because they are also part of it. Okay, we're going to glue it together now. Hot glue it together. For this part at least, sorry about the blurry shot, we are going to hot glue it together because the XPS foam takes so long to dry with normal PVA glue. So once you've sort of found that where it fits together, just glue it all together. So there is what it looks like. You can see some parts sort of fit together, like the front one fits together, which is where you're mainly going to be looking, but the back one I made it just slightly wrong angle, which very much annoyed me. But the arms, one of them is sort of reaching and another one is sort of by its side a little bit. But you can see it's sort of leaning in one direction because it's being blown around. It's an air elemental. It's not like the earth elemental, which is a bit more solid. So now onto painting. This is going to surprise you. You think whites and stuff like that, light colors. For the very base coat, I actually went for like a lavender color. It looks really good in the end, trust me. And you want to mainly get this into all the gashes that you've cut, because this is the color that will really bring it out there. But you can get it into, you can sort of go all over. I did a full cover just because I wasn't quite sure how it would turn out. But in the end, I think it turned out really, really nice. It really matches the concept art is what I'm trying to say. And if you're not like that, that's fine. So while this all dries, let's make the bases. Really, really simple. What you want to do is just cover it with glue all over it. Give it a good coating of dirt or whatever, sand or whatever you want to use. Press that all down and then leave that to dry. Paint it up with a brown, the whole thing covered in brown, watered down quite a bit to make sure it sticks everywhere. And then dry brush with a sort of tan colorish, just all over this thing. And that sort of gives a rockish sort of thing. I haven't used a base like this. I normally do like a black and grey for like underground rock, but I think I'm going to do this for all the elementals. And then finally just go around with the black card or paper just to get rid of that awful side of the cardboard. And that is the base all done. Really, really simple. So here it is, and whoa, is it purple or what? That's okay, we're going to use this. This is not white. This is like a tiny little bit of purple, like really tiny, and then a whole lot of white. It's like a lilac, like a light lilac. I think that's the color. I don't know. This paint is about 3 parts water, 7 parts paint, so it's a little bit more watered down than I usually would use, but it's for good reason, because I didn't want it to just basically completely get rid of the purple that I just put on, so I sort of made it a little bit lighter. You still want to cover the whole thing, but because it's more watered down, it won't completely get rid of all the purple underneath. The real reason of this color is just to make sure that you're covering the purple so you don't get a purple elemental, but also to add in the whites that the elemental sort of looks. If you've made an elemental in, a different way, I'm very intrigued. Tell me about it in the comments. Because I've never made any elementals, or elementals for that matter, so yeah, I'll be interested if you've just used whites and greys or whatever. So this is fairly quick. You just want to once again cover it. It dries a bit quicker than the purple because it's a bit more watered down. But it leaves a bit of a weird looking thing. It looks like some areas are painted more. So over the top of this, I just did a white dry brush all over it. And here's the finished product. Lots and lots of glue. This glue is going to the end of its life, I think, so it's taking a bit of time to get out. But make sure you use this to make sure the base really sticks to it. That might have been a little bit too much, but yeah, this base didn't matter because it's going to be covered by this thing. But yeah, you can see what I mean now. The purple underneath just gives it this sort of darker tone, I think. I don't think grey would have looked as good, and then these 2 layers of white, because again I did a white dry brush over the top, just really added to it and gave it a lot of texture. I think you may hate it, you may think, God, that looks awful, and that's fine. But I really like it. I'll pop up a picture of what the elemental looked like in its, what it looks like, so you can tell the difference. But if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, I will see you in the next video, which will be most likely a 3-minute miniatures, but after that I shall continue this series of the elementals. So thank you, and I'll see you later.